Hey, once more, welcome to the You Can Be Anything podcast. I'm your host, Solange Chair, and it's been a fortnight. I'm here with another amazing guest, as I always. I take 2 weeks, I fetch, right? I find those people who are willing to share their stories, who are willing to come up here and talk to us, to come share their experiences, share their stories, all with a goal to inspire you that, hey, you have the capability to find your best version. Today, I am honored to have a long lost classmate that I found, and I'm so blessed that she accepted to be my guest on the podcast. Thank you so much, Alice Kuaban, for accepting my invitation and welcome to my platform.
Thanks so much, Solange. Happy to be here.
Awesome, thank you. So, again, as I described you, I said long lost, which means I would like for you to talk to us, like tell my guests, who is Alice Kuaban? Please just tell us a little bit about who you are.
Oh, wow. How much time do I have? Just kidding. I am a lot of things to different people, but for your guest, I'm Alice Kuaban. I'm a mom, a wife, a mother, and a daughter, a professional lady, a scientist, and also dabbling into interior design and have been doing that now for quite some time.
Awesome. So again, I'm sure if you heard that second part of what she just described herself to be, it is one of the things that intrigued me, that made me that made me invite her to come talk to us. Alice is a scientist, right? One of those people that do all those science related stuff that, again, if you remember my episode with Dr. Kenji, I said I don't understand anything scientific. So she's one of those people too, those scientists that do all the scientific things. But apart from that, she is also an interior designer. I have checked out her designs and I bet you that they are amazing. Alice, please tell us a little bit about your inspiration. Being a scientist and the kind of person, if you ask me to describe a scientist, I'll say it's that focus-minded person that does research on different kinds of virology, whatever, all those things. How did interior design become a part of you and a passion?
Yeah, I'm a strong believer in the fact that we all have an artistic side of us. Despite the fact that you may be a scientist, you may be a doctor, we all have innate art in us, right? And I think sometimes some of us explore that side of us and some of us don't. I have always been the young girl who would, rejig things in her room, move furniture around. And you would hear this a lot from like folks who are designers, is from a very young age, you just, you're constantly trying new things. And so I decided, I think when we were getting ready to renovate our townhouse, I decided to take on the project myself. I had always tried to keep my house, in tip-top shape, but I think when we decided that we wanted to renovate our townhouse, I thought, well, now is a good time as ever to try this thing out. And so I project managed the heck out of it, picked out all of, the colors, picked out all of the furnishings, work with the contractor to move walls around, work with the architect to basically change the layout of our current home. And I think where I started to get some validation that the work was good was not necessarily from family, because family and friends, they have nothing else but to say nice things to you because they're family, right?
Yes.
But then when you start getting real estate agents and folks who don't really need to please you, tell you that this work is good, it sort of, for lack of a better term, started to offer some sort of justification that maybe this was something I could do. And I am not formally trained, but I do believe that if YouTube is a training tool, then yes, to some degree,
it's a university.
Yeah, YouTube University,
right?
I am an avid believer of, constantly soaking up knowledge. So I watch a lot of videos on like house and garden. There's so many designers that I follow that maybe have some YouTube channels. House Beautiful is another channel that I really follow. And they're just this, like there's so many of these designers out there who are giving you tips and tricks of how to design your home, how to, build a home that is functional but beautiful. And so that really inspired me to continue to hone in on this. And then when we got our new place, I, said, what, I'm going to document my journey around, renovating and redecorating my house. And, that led into, a couple of people asking me to do their places. And I was like, well, I might as well just make this a thing. So this is now my side hustle, but, my day job, I am, a scientist who is working with a lot of physicians and researchers, physician scientists in the blood space, trying to figure out how to cure blood cancer.
Oh, wow. That's good. And again, if I remember when I reached out to Alice, I was like, hey, ain't you supposed to be a medical doctor? And truly, from my classmates, like since like it's over 10 years since we graduated high school, I've always known. I follow her page on Instagram, other sense, and for some reason, I always just felt like she was a medical doctor, and it just, I don't know. I don't know if it's the aura or it's just your personality or it's something, but something deep in me told me that you're an MD. That I'm glad that I spoke with you about this, got a clarification. And yes, you work with doctors and researchers and all of that, but you are a hardcore scientist.
Yes, I am a hardcore biochemist, and live or die. That is, besides the interior design part of me, that is also my passion. Anyone who knows me, who's worked with me, knows that I, love my job. I love what I do. And it's always interesting to see how my job makes a difference in people's lives. I don't get to touch patients. I don't know that I have it in me to hold the life of another human being in my hands, but I can work with scientists to help them do, really awesome science and, develop therapies that will make a difference in people's lives. And that, I think, keeps a smile on my face and, lets me go to sleep at night knowing that, to some small degree, I made a difference in someone's
a
life.
small degree.
Yeah.
Those scientists, they need the help by giving them. Everybody cannot touch patients, right? I don't touch patients. I'm sure that in some way I built software that they use to take care of those patients. So I'm participating as well.
Exactly. It's an entire ecosystem. You're right. Everybody can't, be a doctor. Everybody can't be a researcher, but it's an entire ecosystem. The patients themselves have to eat, right? So if you exactly. So if you don't have that ecosystem to be able to ensure that, at the end of the day, you are playing a part in keeping someone healthy, then, what's the meaning of life? That's how I see it.
Also, talking to you previously, there is something we spoke about earlier that I would love for you to talk about it, because personally, I've had people reach out to me, and there's people who have decided to settle in life because they tried something and it didn't work out, or because they tried something and failed at it and they're like, oh, you know what, that's it for me. Talking to you, I understood that you have tried a couple of different things in life until you finally settled. You found your passion, you found what makes you happy, and today you're doing it with a lot of love. Please talk to us a little bit about your journey, like the different experiences, like the different things that you tried on this journey before you became the awesome scientist that you are today.
Oh, thank you. So I would say I came to this country like any other immigrant. I came to the US as a student on an F1 visa, and navigated most of my time in this country with an F1 status. I went to Wisconsin, La Crosse, Wisconsin, a very small Franciscan university, and it's really there coming to the US at a very young age, when you come from, say, back home, you are coming here perhaps with prospects of either going to med school, either going to dental school, either going to law school. It's all of these professional degrees, right? Because those are for lack of a better term, the high paying jobs back home. Those are the jobs that our parents covet for their kids. Those are the jobs that, our parents feel are appropriate for their kids. And so for me coming here, my intent was really to go to dental school after undergrad. And then I got here and realized I could graduate quite early. And I was just 18. And I'm like, if you're telling me I can graduate even sooner than the 4 years that I thought I was going to be here for, I told my advisor, I'm not ready for the real world, but, I would like to be able to graduate in time and figure out where I want to be when I grow up. So, I ended up doing my undergrad. Instead of doing it in 4 years, I did it in 3. And then after that, I left and went to Atlanta, where I decided to do an internship at a dental office, just to get a sense for whether or not I would really like it. And it didn't pan out. It wasn't really what I anticipated or what I expected. And I really started to lose interest. Also, there were the challenges of how to finance school. So dental school is not cheap. So how do you finance it? And while I did get admission into a dental school, there wasn't the money, so how was I going to pay for it? So I nannied for some time and then decided to pursue grad school. And I was fortunate enough to get into Georgetown University. I got a nice scholarship. And, like with anything in my life, I am trying to figure out how to get it done as quickly as I can and not have to spend too much money. So grad school had to be quick. So normally master's programs are, 2 years, 3 years, sometimes depending on the nature of your work. I was able to get mine done in about 1.5 years. And then once that was done, then I had to figure out the next thing. And I was fortunate to, and this is where I think I really started to hone in on the fact that I really enjoyed science. I landed a job at Catholic University where I worked in a virology lab. And I loved doing HIV research. Everyone can resonate with HIV. We all heard about it. We know how it devastated people's lives. So being able to work in a space where you knew that you were trying to design, work on vaccine design to hopefully make a difference, was really inspiring to me. But in the back of my mind, I knew that I wasn't really doing what my parents wanted of me, which was,
I wanted you to have a professional degree.
Exactly. So then, after having long conversations with my parents and my husband, I think we decided that if we were going to do this medical school thing, we had to be able to pay for it or figure out a way to finance most of it. And, because of, my status and just trying to navigate things, being an F1 student, I would probably have to travel out of the country and maybe, pursue medical school in like the Caribbean, which is, much cheaper than, say, doing it here.
Yeah.
So I did that. And it was a big, risky move because I left this country mintly married, and went to a foreign land, a small, tiny island, 2,500 people. Anyone who knows St. Martin may know Saba. It's a very small island. They have a really good medical program, though. And I went there and realized this medicine thing,
it's not for you either.
And you can imagine the frustration, like, I think what was jarring to me was that my grades told a different story from how I felt. The grades were good, but my mind wasn't there.
Not there.
And I think that there's a lot to be said about that. because a lot of times we ignore what our minds are telling us and we do what we think society wants us to do. And I had to go through different iterations of my life to realize that that really wasn't the way I should be doing things. You really need to follow your passion and follow your heart, because when you're happy with what you're doing, you're successful at it. And so for me, the minute I realized this wasn't cut out for me, I did know that I was very good at histology and I loved tutoring histology. So I went to the dean and I told the dean I was quitting. I didn't know what next was for me, but because he'd realized I was very good at histology, he asked if I would be interested in tutoring other students. I said yes. So that sort of kept me afloat on the island for a while. I did a couple of other jobs, and then applied to McGill University to do a research assistantship there. And, my plan was to potentially also pursue a PhD there as well. The whole plan behind going to McGill too was to try to get as close to my husband as possible. As you can imagine, I'm mentally married and I'm in a foreign land. And I just want to pause and just say, my husband, all throughout all of this, has been very, very supportive. I got married very young. We've been together. Geez, I've stopped counting. Probably 15 years.
Wow. No, you've been married for 15 years?
Yes. Him and I really, I think we hitched maybe 2009 or so. I can't even keep track, but he's the person I've been with for as long as I can remember. And he's been very supportive. And I don't think that I would have done any of this without him. Long story short, I went to Canada and finally was able to get back to the States. And then at that point, decided to find a career in the sciences and pursue that. And so my mantra is, you do what makes you happy. It may not make any sense to those around you, but if it makes sense to you and it makes you happy, do it.
Awesome. That is a beautiful story, for real. And I see your people, I'm like, these are my mates, right? And they've been doing this magical thing you call marriage for 15 years. Congratulations, girl.
Yeah.
Wow, kudos to that. Awesome. That's a beautiful story you just shared there. And what I wanted to pick out from this story, my dear listeners, is the fact that for those of you who worry that, hey, I did not make it at this thing, I tried this and I failed, and you feel that life has ended, then no. That inner, ask yourself that question. I keep talking about it. What is it that makes you happy? And go for it. I've said it a million times on here how I wanted to study journalism and mass communication at the University of Boya, but they rejected me because I did not have up to 9 points. I knew that I wanted to talk somehow. I knew that I don't know what it is, but I needed to talk. But unfortunately, considering the system I grew up in, I could not really get to study that. But today, aside from my job that pays my bill, I'm able to talk and still do this because it is what makes me happy, right? So it's being able to find that thing and to not give up. It is fine to change. Don't stay on the same. It is okay if this doesn't work, change it. Just try the next thing. So thank you so much, Alice, for sharing your story. Thank you for telling us about your whole journey as a scientist. Let's circle back to you as a designer, right? This designer side of you, is this something that you plan to hold long term? Is this something that if, let's say today, things escalate, you become, and again, I saw you on apartment therapy. Maybe you want to tell the listeners about that a little bit before I talk about the future of Other Sense.
Yeah. It was amazing to see my work be featured on apartment therapy.
Please tell us what apartment therapy is in the first place. Some people might not even know what that is.
Sure. So this is an online, it's an online platform really that, focuses more on home decor, interior design, DIY projects. And I think it's one of those platforms that it's virtual, so it's accessible to a lot of people. But then it features the works, I would say the works of the people. They do have works of like more advanced interior designers that they feature, but they have this column called Before and Afters, where you basically submit your work and you are at the mercy of the editor, really, to pick your work. So if your work is good and the editor sees that it's good, it will be featured. So I was fortunate. After doing a bathroom project, I submitted it and didn't think much of it. Like every time you submit something to a magazine, it's like, well, it's going into some sort of black box, hey. And then I remember the day like it was yesterday where I started getting a lot of followers on Instagram. I'm very new to Instagram as well. I think probably been like maybe 9, 10 months maybe. And I remember just one day my phone just kept blowing up with like followers, and I'm like, what is going on? I didn't even get like a courtesy email from the editor to say, hey, we're featuring you. And so, I was telling my husband, I'm like, oh, maybe it's this, SEO thing I just did to the website that maybe people are now seeing my work. So that's why I'm getting followers on Instagram. And then he just, I don't know why he was Googling me, but he just Googled me. And then he saw that I had an article out. And of course, I'm like jumping up and down. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this. This is so exciting. And then I did another project and I submitted it and it got featured again. And so that, I think, solidified for me that I shouldn't take this lightly. I am the kind of person who, you take cues from your life. If there's something that seems to be working right, you hone in on it. Try to figure out what is it that you're doing that, maybe is interesting to you, interesting to people, and you hone in on that and try to grow it. So that really was what catapulted me to really start to be a little bit more bold as far as, like my design strategy and taking some risks, taking certain risks that, at least in our culture, Cameroonians, to be more precise, you don't see a lot of people painting their walls black. Like if you walked into someone's home and they painted their room black, you'd be like, what the heck? But I've done it. And, it's amazing. And it black, or painting a room black gives it some sort of coziness that, you would never, it's rich looking. Black, it's a neutral color. And so you can play around with different colors. Like you can imagine how red will pop. So imagine having like a dark wall with a bright red piece of art. It's a showstopper. Like you are going to stop and do a double take in that room. So, so those are some of the things that I'm doing. And also I really like sustainable design. So I incorporate a lot of old. So I am not shy about thrifting. I'm not shy about going to antique stores and buying something that, may seem old to someone else, but then, you put it in a space with a couple of modern pieces and it just brings it to life.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my design ethos and aesthetic.
Wow, that is awesome. That is beautiful. And when you were talking, something came to my mind and I wanted to talk about. I know I've mentioned artisans like 3 times. Talk to us about that name, please. That is the name of Alice's design company or design.
Yes, my design studio.
Yes, design studio. Yes.
Yeah. So artisans started. I think Fred and I, and that's my husband, we were trying to figure out what we were going to call. I started really off with the intent to blog and blog about my projects, and then it just kind of expanded. And we really didn't want to have a name that was kitschy. We didn't want to have a name that, after a couple of months, you're going to be like, what was I thinking with that name? But then there were certain things about my design process that I felt I needed to capture in a name. And so we started to sort of think, like, when you think about the whole concept of design, there are, in my view, three key things that have to happen. You have to organize, whether it be your thoughts, whether it be your money, whether it be your time, you have to organize. Then you have to actually design the space. And by design, I mean you're thinking about, how do you lay out the room? How does the room function? How do you want it to function? How do you want it to inspire you? Or how do you want to feel in the room? So you think about those things. That's all in the design aspect. And then you have to decorate. That's the fun part, right? You're putting accent pieces here, you're putting art on the walls. So those, to me, are the three pillars, I would say, of the interior design world that all have to come together in order to make a beautiful space. And when you think of the word beautiful, a synonym to that is essence. A synonym to that is, something that, is just lovely. And so when I thought about, how do I define or describe to someone the interior design ecosystem in one word, that to me was Audison's. It has to have organization, it has to design, you have to decorate, and it has to look beautiful.
Beautiful.
So that's what Audison's.
That's a well thought name. Ooh, that is good. That's a well thought name. Thank you for saying that. When I looked at it, I was like, oh, what motivated her? Thank you. That is a really good one. Another thing, if you don't mind, you want to share with us is, what is one thing that you can say has been, I know you've spoken to us about your mantra, but what is one thing you believe that you have done repeatedly on your journey that has helped you move forward, right? Maybe the kind of thing that you say, another person will be like, oh, this person, stop talking too much, or something, I don't know, but something that that has been a very supportive thing as you move from one stage of your life to another. How would you say, what would be the main thing you say has been like your guiding principle?
Well, I have two. I don't have one, I have two. One is, don't have any regrets for anything that you do. If you make a decision, don't regret it. Do it, and even if it doesn't work out, learn from the mistakes, learn from the failures, because that would inspire you to do better, or change course. Yeah. So not having any regrets, like whenever I make a decision, and anyone who knows me knows I am very, very laser focused when I've made up my mind. I'm not changing it. And the reason for that is because I don't want to resent people around me for making me change my mind. So, I would rather resent myself. But I don't, even, because, if I've made up my mind, it's because I wanted to do this. And I think that it would either bring me value, or even if it didn't work out, I would learn something from it. So don't have any regrets is one key thing. The other thing is, knowledge is power, and get the knowledge from anyone that you can get it from. So I am not shy about reaching out to people and asking questions about how did you do this? Solange, I see you're doing this podcast. I'm thinking about doing the same thing. Can you tell me more? How did you do it? What did you do? What was your process? What worked for you? What didn't work for you? My goal is that by doing that, I'm educating myself. I'm informing my decision-making process. Because if I talk to you and you say, man, this thing is hard, I had to do this, I had to do that, I may listen to that and say, it's hard, but you're still able to do it.
Yes.
So there's a possibility that I can do it. Or I may listen to it and I'm like, I don't want nothing to do with this anymore. So, just being able to, get out there and network, for lack of a better term. I'm an introvert by nature, but when I am passionate about something and I want information, I will do everything I can to get that information. So knowledge is power, in my view. more than money.
Awesome. There we go. So again, what's the take out there? Go out there and ask questions. You will rarely find yourself being the first person to do something. But even if you're the first person to do it, there is somebody that is doing something that is related to that. So please go out, ask questions, reach out for help. Just ask, like, hey, how did you do this? Or I'm facing this difficulty. How did you handle it? Was that something that you encountered in your own process where you were doing this? How can I just be there, be able to reach out and ask people nicely for help?
Yeah. And
it's okay to ask.
And if I may add, the worst thing that anyone can say is not respond to your email or say no.
Yep.
What do you have to lose?
That's the worst they can do. Definitely, they can't do anymore. So there is no harm asking. If you ask me, there is really no harm about it. Wow, this is great. Now, if you don't mind, right, you have gone through your own fair share of the challenges of moving from Cameroon, coming here at that young age, going to school, surviving, doing your own survival jobs until you're able to find yourself, right? This is a journey that a lot of people give up on. A lot of people, again, I keep going back to settling because we have brothers and sisters out here who have come here and found a piece of bread and settled for it when they can actually have a cake. You get it? And so this is me now just asking if you could please throw out some words of encouragement to anybody out there who might be freshly, like maybe they just came into America fresh or any other part of the world, but have left Cameroon most probably to go out and hustle, or who's been here, who's been out in the diaspora for years and they still don't feel like they have found themselves. What kind of words can you throw out to that kind of person?
I would say, that's an interesting and tough question. But maybe going from my experience, I would say don't be afraid to try things. It's okay. And tune out the noise. People are going to talk. People are going to say things. People will, want to impose on you what they think you should be doing. Tune out that noise and listen to you. Listen to your own inner voice, because when you start listening to yourself, you start listening to your mind, you are able to really start to figure out where exactly you want to be when you grow up. It doesn't matter if mom or dad or uncle or auntie are, lawyers, nurses, what have you. That is their path. So you have to listen to yourself, understand who you are, and then stay grounded in who you are. Because that's the only way, in my view, that you are actually able to know what path you should pursue. I think for me specifically, the reason I gallivanted the world and did a lot of things, it's partially because that's just who I am, but it's also because I felt the need to please others. I felt the need to do what my parents thought was best or do what my family would think is best, and never really listened to myself. And so my advice is, don't be afraid to tune out the noise, listen to yourself, and stay laser focused on what you want to do.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Alice. And again, this boils down to the same fact why I thought that you were a medical doctor, because your dad is a medical doctor, maybe in my mind, because Alice's father is a medical doctor. Alice is probably also a medical doctor. The same thing with me. My dad is a teacher, and I was being trained to become a teacher, a lecturer, someday before I diverted, right? So I think it is something that is just in us as we grow from our culture. We want to be like our parents. Our parents want us to be like them, especially if they were successful people. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I appreciate you for sharing that. But before we end this session, right, And I'm going to give you time to just talk about anything else. But please, when we talk of interior designing, personally, I think it is so expensive. Like when I look at beautiful spaces, I love beautiful spaces. I wish I could just sit in my sitting room now as I'm doing this podcast and you cite a nice maybe piece on the wall or something. I could just arrange. It's so hard because whenever I go and I check, it feels like, man, that piece of furniture is like $200. Come on, I don't want that. How can you, again, this is something that you'll probably be part of your business. But if you don't mind to share some nuggets with us, like how can you have a beautiful interior on a budget? What is the best advice that you can give someone out there who is trying to make their little space beautiful, but they want to do it on a budget?
I would say the first thing is to really hone in on that budget. Like, what is really that budget?
Yes.
Because, it's one thing to say, let's have a spruced up space on a budget. But what is that budget? Because that budget could determine where you shop, it could determine, what types of things you buy. So I would say we'll pick a room. Let's just say a living room, right? Maybe your budget is $1,000. Okay. Well, if you're going to buy a new sofa, that $1,000 is probably gone. Even if you had to reupholster a sofa that you bought from, say, a vintage store, that $1,000 is gone.
Mm-hmm.
So then you start thinking, how can I use the things that I already have and maybe invest that money in other things that would really give high impact for very, very small amount of money. So one big thing is paint. There is so much power in paint. So if you have a very tight budget, you can't maybe go out to buy new pieces of furniture. Try to paint your walls. Try to move furniture around. I think a lot of times, sometimes we have spaces where just the layout alone doesn't work. And so, it's just like, okay, the room just looks cluttered. Mm-hmm. But if you do your furniture layout and you figure out a way things can actually flow in and out of the room, then you might actually have a space that looks aesthetically pleasing with a fresh coat of paint on the walls. Bring in some throw pillows. And when I say throw pillows, I'm not talking going to, say, Amazon and buying these pillows that maybe already have a cover on them. No, never, ever do that. Always invest in things that you can use now, you can use 10 years from now, and they will still hold on to their quality and their time. And by that, I mean, I go to IKEA, for instance, and I'll buy, I'm going to butcher the name, but it's called the Fajar pillows, and they're actually feather filled. You would never believe that IKEA has feather filled pillows, but they do. Oh. You can go to IKEA, buy feather filled pillows, and then you buy pillow covers. You will tire of your pillow covers very often, but that pillow insert is what's going to last you forever. And so you can keep changing that out. So buy really good quality pillows. And if there's money left over from that budget, that $1,000 budget that we were talking about, consider getting a nice, good rug. You can go to places like Rugs USA to get some nice rugs. I've actually found some really interesting rugs too at like Home Depot and Lowe's. So you can buy good rugs and make sure to have art on the walls. That could mean, yes, get some art on the walls. You can frame, pictures that maybe your kids have drawn. You can DIY your own art. But have some art on the walls. And don't be shy, like I said before, to go to thrift stores or go to antique malls to find little unique trinkets that resonate with you and bring them into your home, because that would add some character and it would really make the space feel like you and not like a space that you got from, you went to a store, a furniture store, and you just brought the showroom into your home.
Oh wow, this is good. See, the next time I have a podcast, I'm gonna have pillows. I'm probably gonna have some art on the wall. And
Yes.
to think that I love painting. Excuse me. I definitely want to do some painting as well. I actually have like paint stuff and the kit and stuff. I'm gonna spend some time on that and make my space, the DIY, beautiful.
I
And
would say you already have a good color scheme. I love the color of that sofa. I think it would go very nicely with any color that you try to bring in.
do
So
you
having
think
a
yellow is
nice,
gonna look nice on this sofa?
I would throw in, if you like color, don't
I
be
love
shy about
yellow.
it. Throw in, you can do two things. You can do a blanket that maybe is yellow or has some yellow hues to it. Don't do too much though. Throw in a blanket and leave it at that, and then bring in some other neutrals, or throw a pillow that's yellow and leave it at that. So
Okay.
don't do the blanket and the pillow yellow.
Yellow. Awesome. You see, this is tips. I always tell my listeners, like, hey, Solange is the first beneficiary of all the knowledge that her guest brings on here, right? So I'm so happy that you shared that. Are there any other words you would like to throw out there before we round this up?
Well, I will use this to shamelessly plug my website and say, if anyone's interested in, any design work or just looking for tips, I actually offer, 30-minute free consultations via my website. You just need to subscribe. It's audisons.com. So you just need to subscribe, and I will be in touch to schedule a mutual time that works for us to talk about any project that you might have. And if you're interested in working further, then we can talk some more.
All right. Also, I'll probably do that first person because I'd love to have my space beautiful. So, and again, just remember that some of us like to furnish on a budget. I want you to help me not go spend all the money that I'm throwing out there in stores and buying furniture that I don't even know what to do with. So, I'm definitely filling out that form on othersense.com to consult and possibly decorate, particularly my living room. I think I don't want to have it beautiful.
I will be honored.
Yes, I again, and I'm going to be showing this off a lot. If we finally do this, I'll be showing this off a lot, knowing that apart from being the great scientist that you are, you're also an amazing interior designer. Thank you so much, Alice, for accepting my invitation, for being a guest on here. And the last thing I was going to get you to talk about is where the listeners can find you. But again, you already mentioned that you are on like othersense.com. I'm going to put on this on the description of this so you can find her, you can check out her work. Check her out on Instagram as well. Othersense, that is just what it's called, right?
Yeah, it's odd_essence.
Essence. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to put all of that in the description of this podcast. And please check her out, follow her page, use her, consult with her, get her busy, right? Since she's doing she wants a side gig. Let's get her busy. That's all. Awesome. Thank you so much, Alice. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Solange. It was great being here.
My pleasure.